In an interview for the Financial Times, the UN said that West Mosul was the largest and most complex project of stabilization they've ever faced. But let's get back to the beginning. In 2014, the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda took over the country and occupied it for 3 years, ruling through fear and violence, destroying cultural heritage and persecuting minorities. In 2017, the Iraqi government, with the help of the international coalition, defeated the Islamic State and pushed them out of Iraq. After 3 years of war, what was left behind was ruins and desolation. So I can film the street. So the conflict resulted in millions of displaced people around the country. People left their home to flee the Islamic State when the conflict started, but also after the liberation because their home have been destroyed.
Right now in Iraq we have approximately 1.6 millions of internally displaced people still, 2 years after the end of the war. Most of them live either in camps or outside of camps.
It has now been 2 years since the conflict ended, and the Iraqi governments want people to come home. So they are closing camps and they are forcing people to return.
It's a very concerning situation because most of these people are undocumented or perceived as affiliated, and when they return, they will be concerned by maybe community retaliation and violence. They will not be accepted by the community back home.
The reconstruction has not yet reached a place that's conducive for returns. They might not have a home.
Even if the war is over, there are still places of the country that are not safe because of remaining terrorists, but also because of all the unexploded bombs and mines left behind.
I was in a house, a damaged house, and there was simply an unexploded mortar shell on the roof, and I just saw it, and it was accessible to any children playing in the area. We see people trying to rebuild their house with their bare hands, and they are put at risk of unexploded bombs themselves. So basically you put people out of camps for them to return, but then back home they will have no other option than living either in informal settlements, we call that secondary displacement, or in another camp. So this is basically putting the dust under the carpet.
Mosul has always been one of the most prosperous cities of Iraq, especially in ancient times, because it was part of the Silk Road between Baghdad and Palmyra. It was a trading town known for its diversity in religions and ethnic communities. Look at this picture of Mosul before the war, and this is what it looks like now. It is quite impressive to see the level of destruction. After 3 years of heavy fighting, the whole west part of the city is destroyed. This area was hosting the old city, which was the most crowded area of the city. And this is also the place where the last ISIS members took shelter before the liberation. So how do you rebuild the city when it has been partially or entirely destroyed? Where do you start? I went to meet with the person in charge of the rebuilding of West Mosul. After the liberation, the UN Development Programme elaborated a plan called the Founding Facility for Stabilization, FFS, a 4-year plan for the rehabilitation of the city from 2018 to 2020. When they first arrived in the city, the conflict wasn't over yet, and it was still total chaos. People were fighting, there was dead bodies on the street. After the conflict ended in 2017, the first step was to remove the rubbles. They removed more than 1 million tons with their bare hands with the help of the locals. This was a must to start the rehabilitation. When that was done, the priority was to restore people's basic needs. So they renovated the water treatment plant, the electrical substations that were heavily bombed during the retaking of the city. But it didn't go that easy. They faced major issues. They didn't have plans, no record has been kept, and the previous engineer who worked on the project were unfindable or were dead. Especially on the northwest of the city, where was the latest development. No planning was done, infrastructures were not good, and because of corruption, the quality of the building was terrible. So rebuilding a city without a plan or a guideline is a very complicated thing. So this is what has been done until now. The next step from 2018 to 2020 is to rebuild 10 to 15,000 houses and major hospitals that are run by NGOs for the moment. It is important to note that people are also rebuilding their house by themselves, as help cannot be given to everyone. So all these issues are making the rebuilding process really slow. So that leads us to an important point. Mosul is an old city full of history, full of old buildings and cultural heritage. So the question is, what do you do when you rebuild? Do you do exactly the same or do you change it totally?
Conserver l'architecture traditionnelle, c'est très important. C'est une partie d'identité, histoire, chaque famille, chaque individu qui a vécu dans ce quartier, dans ces maisons.
The current government wants to modernize the city, make it a new city with malls, supermarkets, high-rises and restaurant chains. They want to make Mosul an investment hub. So instead of rebuilding the old city and renovating it, they want to tear it down and rebuild new buildings over it.
On pourrait construire de zéro, mais quelle identité qu'on va donner à ces maisons, ces quartiers?
And this is understandable. Old houses are not adapted anymore to today's standards. They are all not well isolated, electrical systems and sewage are in terrible conditions. And if we talk about living conditions, they were not even good before the war. People lived cramped in these small apartments. Often a few families lived in the same apartment, so the conditions were not good. Some citizens, of course, want their house to be rebuilt in a better state than before, but they absolutely don't want to lose their cultural heritage. The architecture of a city is its identity. How do you want to feel a sense of belonging to a place you don't recognize anymore? How will the next generation know where they are from?
Moi, j'espère et je souhaite qu'on garde l'architecture traditionnelle, parce que la ville de Mosul a une longue histoire et qui est très important de garder, conserver cette histoire d'architecture, de patrimoine qui distingue la ville de Mosul d'autres villes.
What needs to be found is a compromise between modernization and conservation. There is a crucial need on improving the functional facilities such as water and sewage. So doing that while keeping the structure such as the form, the color and the materials could be a solution. The rebuilding of Mosul and cities in Iraq in general is a first in a very long time, and it will be really interesting to see what happens. Is it going to be an example of reconstruction or is it going to be a big failure? Only the future will tell. So thank you for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to say a big thank you to all the people that participated in this video. Even if they are not in the video, I met many people that gave me a lot of information, so thank you very much. And of course, like the video, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And see you next week. Bye.